report of the East Welland Accommodation Review Committee. I have a recommended motion that the report of the East Welland Accommodation Review Committee be received. Moved by Trustee Welland, seconded by Trustee Dane. I'll call on Superintendent Kardazinski, please.
Thank you, Chair Fulford. As trustees are aware, we will be presenting two reports this evening. One report from the East Welland Accommodation Review Committee and also a second report from the Senior Administrative Staff. So if you will turn to the final report and recommendations of the East Welland Accommodation Review Committee, that's where we'll start. And I'll be giving you the highlights of this report. The first page includes the membership list of the East Welland Accommodation Review. Just one thing that I would like to highlight is that we did finally find a local business community member, but the business community member was not able to join us until February the 11th. So that's the only thing that's different in that part of the report. The next part is the background information, which is consistent with the rest of the reports that we've had. We did have the review committee start in September 09, and we held 9 meetings, 5 meetings of the ARC and 4 meetings of the public. The valuation reports, you have the binders with all of your valuation reports, so I didn't feel the need to include those, and I know it's a lot of reading, but basically you have the school program reports that were put together by the principals along with the school council chairs, and the school facilities put together by Doug Durant and his staff, and the demographics put together by our planning department. I would like you to look at page 2 under school program. We did have a great deal of discussion in the Welland ARC about the grade configurations, and the principals were able to share with us some of the difficulties that they have as the declining enrollment hits the schools, and that is the fewer teachers for extracurriculars, to spread the load of supervision, an increased number of part-time teachers. There was a lot of concern around the table about part-time teachers who were traveling from more than one school. Parents were saying that it was difficult for their student to get adjusted to certain teachers because they were traveling from school to school, and because of the low enrollment, it was difficult to have full-time teachers in all areas. So that was one thing that they did talk about. The fact that fewer teacher grade partners, in some schools we only have 1 grade 1, 1 grade 2, 1 grade 3, so they didn't have any grade partners to talk to about best practice. So that was one of the concerns that they had. Smaller groupings for student interactions. There were some concerns that if you had a small number of students in a small grade, that you would have maybe 4 boys and 1 girl, and 5 boys and 2 girls, and it would be difficult if you wanted social grouping. So there was some talk about social groupings. Also, decrease in the supports for literacy coaching time, library and learning resource time, split classes, particularly the concern, again, as always, of triple splits. The parents were aware of the double splits because they are in the majority of schools, and that's very difficult to avoid, but the concern was the triple splits once you got down to a certain level. So we had a lot of discussion around that. We talked a lot about school facilities. If you'll notice that the 2 oldest schools that we have in the East Welland community are Empire Public School and Matthews Public School. And if trustees have not visited those schools recently, I think that Superintendent Sue Greer would be glad to take you for a tour of the schools. It would be good if you got a chance to see. The buildings were built in 1921 and 1929 respectively. Then we compare the size of the sites, the Empire School being the smallest and Crowland being the largest, and the fact that Crowland and Matthews being the largest sites. Dr. Durant talked about the community rental and lease bookings. The school that's used the most is Plymouth Elementary School, which had 1,076 hours for use, and the one that was used the least was Crowland Central School with 0 hours of use for the same time period. The long-term facility renewal needs we looked at, the $690,000 for Matthews and Empire, because both of these would require elevators for full renewal needs for elevators for them. And Crowland Public School had the least amount of renovations at $220,000 for renewal, facility renewal. Then we looked at demographics, and you have all of the charts in your program, in your binders, And according to the enrollment projections, the lowest enrollments will be in 2014 for Crowland at 105 and Empire at 139 based on a 3-year retention rate. There was a lot of discussion around the ARC about boundaries, whether or not it was possible to change boundaries in order to improve the enrollment projections of the schools. We did talk about the Port Robinson area and the Ontario Public School area for Crowland, and they felt that there were a lot of families from there that would be interested in boundary change to allow them to go to Crowland Central School to boost that enrollment. There was some talk also about Ontario Street Public School, but the Planning Department did mention that Ontario Street is not really highly enrolled, and so therefore taking it away from that school would then decrease the enrollment to under capacity. So there's a lot of discussion about various enrollment projections and the changes in boundaries to suit that. Then we had our public meetings, which took place, and after the public meetings, we had a discussion around common ground. And the people around the table of the ARC, they came to the conclusion that there were certain things that they understood. They understood that there was a need to consolidate schools. They understood that there was a declining enrollment in the area, and then in order to fix the schools with their capacity, that 2 schools could be closed, and they were accepting of the 2-school closure. They talked about a lot, and this committee was very well versed on some of the, we sent them a lot of research, Ken Leithwood's research on school size, and they did a lot of reading, and they were prepared for a great deal of discussion around the size of schools, and they felt that 350 to 400 would be a suitable size for this type of community. They also felt that if a school were closed, it would be beneficial to them if the entire student body was moved to the same school, rather than splitting the students up. And they really wanted to know where the extended French was going to go. They preferred it to stay at Princess Elizabeth. If that couldn't happen, they wanted it to stay in the East Welland community. So that was a common ground that the committee came to. On February the 11th, Superintendent Hyatt presented the board administration option, which included the closure of Empire School, which would be moved to, the students would be redirected to Plymouth Public School. Matthews